Hi, it's Miss Donna with Raleigh Parks Recreation and Cultural Resources. I'm here at Lake Wheeler Park and I am hunting for frogs and toads. Frogs and toads are interesting creatures. They've got those big bulging eyes at the tops of their heads and they've got those wide mouths. They're fun creatures to spot. Frogs and toads are amphibians. That means they spend part of their lives in the water and part of their lives on land. Frogs usually have smooth, moist skin, and they've got those long back legs for jumping near ponds and other wetlands. But toads, they've got rough, dry skin, and they prefer to live in drier places. Did you know there are thousands of different kinds of frogs and toads in our world? Some of the largest frogs live in Africa, and they're called Goliath frogs, and they can grow to be 1 foot long and weigh 5 pounds. In our area, some of our biggest frogs are called bullfrogs, and they can be 6 inches long. Some of our smallest frogs are the tiny cricket frogs. They can be just about 1 inch long. And sometimes when you're hunting for frogs and toads, you'll hear them rather than see them. Frogs and toads can be quite vocal. The male frogs and toads have a special vocal sac. It's right beneath their mouths, and they take air from their lungs and they swell it up like a balloon. And then they push that air near their vocal cords. And that's when we hear them call. Frogs and toads begin their lives in eggs. Amphibian eggs are covered with this jelly-like goo that protects the little creatures inside. American toads, they lay long bead-like strings of eggs. And some frogs, like spring peepers, they lay tiny little eggs one at a time in the pond. But some frogs, like green frogs and bullfrogs, they lay big masses of eggs, thousands of eggs that float around the pond. The time spent inside their eggs varies. It depends on the kind of frog or toad, and it also depends on the weather. But when those eggs hatch, the pond comes alive with tiny tadpoles. Tadpoles are amazing creatures to watch as they wiggle their tails and they breathe underwater with gills, just like fish. Tadpoles are plant eaters, and they have tiny mouths for scraping pond plants. These wiggly tadpoles have to watch out for creatures who might want to eat them. Creatures like beetles and fish and snakes and birds. Eventually, tadpoles will begin to grow legs. Look at this guy. He's got some back legs. And he's starting to grow his front legs. When the front legs start to appear, that's when the gills start to clog up. So our frogs and toads have to begin using their lungs to breathe. And look at its eyes. They're moving to the top of its head, and they're starting to bulge out. And its mouth changes too. It's getting wider instead of a tiny scraper mouth. Now it's got a wider mouth for eating new foods. And its tail, well, tadpoles' tails don't fall off. Tadpoles' tails are absorbed in their bodies. And the time it takes for tadpoles to turn into frogs and toads really depends. It depends on the type of frog or toad it is, and it also depends on the weather. Some tadpoles can take just a few days to become adults, but others, they can take their time, and it takes them even years to grow up to become their adult forms. Big old bullfrog tadpoles like this guy, they're slow to change. They can spend the winter burrowed in the mud at the bottom of the pond. It can take them quite a while to grow and change. And look who I found hiding here in the wooded area at the park. It's an American toad. An American toad is our state's largest toad. It has dry, rough skin. It's got a white stripe running down its back. And it has special skin on its belly. And our toads like to sit in puddles, and they absorb water with that special skin patch on their belly. And did you know that toads are an important part of our natural world? They eat lots of insects that can destroy crops. So toads help farmers, and in turn, they help us. Thanks for going on a frog and toad hunt with me today. Now it's your turn. It's time to put on your shoes and head outdoors and go make some discoveries in nature. Bye-bye.